when Frank Fritz, the beloved bearded picker of American Pickers, was unceremoniously ousted from the show in March 2020. Fans felt blindsided, but little did they know that was merely the opening act of a tragedy yet to unfold. In September 2024, the collector's world mourned as news of Frank's passing echoed through the community. Yet, as heartbreaking as his death was, it wasn't even the most startling revelation of this somber chapter. Whispers began to circulate, chilling rumors about Frank's final words, a cryptic message that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to listen. And just when it seemed the shock couldn't deepen, his estate unveiled a secret so staggering, so profoundly unexpected, it left everyone reeling, grappling with a legacy far more complex and poignant than anyone could have imagined. Before the headlines and the heartbreak, before American Pickers and the fame that came with it, there was just Frank Fritz, an Iowa native born on October 11, 1963, with a curiosity that burned brighter than any flame. While other kids chased baseballs and comic books, Frank chased history, drawn to the untold stories hidden within the mundane. Old coins, rusty beer cans, discarded stamps, even razor blades long past their prime. To Frank, they weren't just objects. They were echoes of lives lived, whispers of moments past, each holding a fragment of someone's forgotten narrative. He believed every discarded item held a story, a purpose, a fleeting place in someone's life before ending up where it was found, and he was determined to unearth every detail. As Frank grew, so did his passion, evolving from pocket-sized collectibles to grander treasures. Motorcycles, dirt bikes, rare memorabilia, each piece carried the weight of history, etched onto their worn surfaces like timelines of forgotten eras. Flea markets transformed into his battlegrounds, estate sales his playgrounds. If there was an old barn off a forgotten highway, overflowing with relics of the past, Frank was the one knocking on the door, ready to wade through the dust and cobwebs, his heart yearning to bring these relics back into the light. To most, it was an odd hobby, a quirky fascination. But to Frank, it was a calling, a deep-seated need to connect with the stories of the past. But life, as it often does, pulled Frank in an unexpected direction. Instead of diving headfirst into the world of antiques, he spent nearly 25 years serving as a fire inspector in Iowa. It was a serious, no-nonsense profession, demanding a keen eye for detail, unwavering precision, and an unyielding commitment to public safety. Yet, even amidst the rigid structure of fire codes and building inspections, Frank's passion for collecting never dimmed. It merely smoldered beneath the surface, waiting for its moment to reignite. In fact, his day job inadvertently fueled his true calling, as each inspection led him into old firehouses, abandoned warehouses, and forgotten buildings. Places brimming with hidden gems, relics yearning to be discovered, waiting for someone like Frank to breathe life back into their dormant stories. It was in these forgotten spaces, amidst the echoes of sirens and the scent of aged timber, that Frank began collecting firehouse memorabilia. Helmets with soot-stained leather, vintage fire alarms that once pierced through chaos, extinguishers that had witnessed their fair share of infernos. Frank meticulously hunted them all down, piece by piece, driven by a desire to preserve not just objects, but the heroic narratives they embodied. It wasn't long before Frank realized he was onto something bigger than just a personal collection. These relics weren't just fascinating artifacts. They held tangible value, a hidden worth waiting to be unlocked. So he began buying and selling, slowly, painstakingly, transforming his passion into a burgeoning side business. Soon, the seed of an idea began to sprout in Frank's mind. Could he transform his passion into a full-fledged career? He had dedicated years to a stable, reliable job, but deep down, he knew where his heart truly resided. Walking away from the security of a steady paycheck wasn't easy, a daunting leap into the unknown. But the irresistible pull of his true passion, the siren call of the picker's life, proved too strong to resist. He took the plunge, opening Frank's Finds, a modest antique shop specializing in fireman's gear and rare collectibles. It was a humble beginning, a small step towards an uncertain future. Little did he know that unassuming store tucked away in Iowa was the cornerstone of a career that would soon catapult him into a whirlwind of treasure-hunting adventures, a world of reality television, and a level of fame he never saw coming. Before American Pickers transformed Frank Fritz into a household name, he was simply a passionate collector, a man with an uncanny eye for hidden treasures and an insatiable thirst for the thrill of the hunt. But Frank wasn't alone in this fervent obsession. Another Iowa native, Mike Wolfe, shared the same deep-seated passion for picking. Their paths, initially separate, converged on the dusty backroads of antique hunting, their shared love for forgotten relics forging an unlikely bond. They didn't start out as inseparable best friends, but their mutual obsession with picking, with unearthing the ghosts of the past, drew them together, their shared passion becoming the bedrock of a lasting partnership. Mike, the visionary, saw picking as more than just a hobby. He envisioned it as a way of life, a philosophy, a world waiting to be shared. While Frank was content running his beloved shop, Frank's Finds, Mike was already filming his treasure hunting escapades, tirelessly pitching a TV show to anyone who would lend an ear. It took persistence, relentless dedication, and a healthy dose of persuasion. But eventually, Mike convinced Frank to join him on this audacious venture. What began as two friends hitting the open road in search of forgotten relics, chasing down whispers of buried treasures, transformed into a reality television juggernaut that would capture the hearts of millions. When American Pickers premiered on the History Channel in 2010, it struck television gold. Over 3.1 million viewers tuned in for the very first episode, catapulting it to become one of the network's most successful debuts. But the show's undeniable magic wasn't solely rooted in the allure of antiques. It was the genuine, unscripted chemistry between Mike and Frank that captivated audiences. Their palpable excitement wasn't manufactured for the cameras. It was authentic, infectious. Their friendship, tested and strengthened by years of shared picking adventures, was as real as it got. They had already invested years building relationships within the intricate world of antiques, earning respect for their fair deals and encyclopedic knowledge. Now, with cameras rolling, they invited audiences along for the ride, transforming everyday viewers into armchair pickers, sharing in the thrill of the hunt from the comfort of their living rooms. Mike, the shrewd businessman, possessed an innate instinct for profit, always seeking out the next high-value, big-ticket item, the holy grail of picking. Frank, in contrast, embodied the heart and soul of the operation. He possessed a rare gift for making people feel at ease, effortlessly transforming potentially tense negotiations into friendly, engaging conversations. For Frank, it wasn't solely about the monetary value of the find. He genuinely cherished the stories woven into the fabric of each item they unearthed, the human connection forged with every seller they met. That raw authenticity, that unwavering passion, resonated deeply with viewers, making him an instant fan favorite. Whether he was geeking out over a vintage motorcycle, his eyes sparkling with childlike wonder, or sharing a heartfelt laugh with a seller over a shared memory, viewers saw in Frank someone who genuinely loved what he did. A true embodiment of the American spirit of exploration and discovery. For over a decade, American Pickers became a weekly ritual, a must-watch television event that drew in viewers from all walks of life. Week after week, Frank and Mike embarked on their epic road trips, crisscrossing the country, tirelessly digging through barns, garages, and junkyards, unearthing forgotten treasures and breathing new life into relics of the past. With Danielle Colby holding down the fort at Antique Archaeology, managing the shop and providing witty banter via phone calls, the trio forged a dynamic that simply worked, a harmonious blend of personalities and picking styles. They weren't just business partners. They were a family, friends united by a shared passion, chasing their dreams together on the open road. But no road trip lasts forever. And for Frank, the journey that once seemed boundless, the adventure that had defined his life for so long, was about to take a sharp, unexpected turn. A detour no one, least of all Frank himself, could have anticipated. The first subtle signs that something was amiss with American Pickers didn't immediately trigger alarm bells. Frank Fritz's last on-screen appearance aired in March 2020, but given the unprecedented unpredictability of the world at that time, as the pandemic took hold and life as everyone knew it shifted, Most viewers simply assumed he'd be back on the road soon enough, once the dust settled and normalcy returned. What they remained unaware of, however, was the quiet storm brewing behind the scenes, the series of personal struggles Frank was battling, struggles that would ultimately alter the course of his life and forever change the dynamic of American pickers. Frank Fritz, a man of few words when it came to his personal battles, rarely spoke publicly about his inner turmoil. But over time, certain realities became impossible to ignore, casting long shadows over his once vibrant public persona. For years, eagle-eyed fans had noticed fluctuations in Frank's weight, a physical yo-yoing that sparked concern. Some chalked it up to the natural aging process, the inevitable shifts of middle age. Others, more perceptive, worried that something deeper, something more serious might be amiss. Eventually, the truth emerged, reluctantly revealed by Frank himself. He was battling Crohn's disease, a chronic inflammatory condition that relentlessly attacks the digestive system. Crohn's disease is a cruel adversary, a relentless foe that inflicts pain, uncertainty, and exhaustion. Initially, Frank valiantly attempted to manage the debilitating condition, adhering to a strict, restrictive diet, a disciplined regime that helped him shed a significant 65 pounds. But Crohn's is not a foe that yields easily to diet alone. It's a chronic, unpredictable battle that demands constant vigilance and unwavering fortitude. The gnawing pain, the crushing fatigue, the ever-present cloud of uncertainty. These became unwelcome companions in Frank's daily life, yet he stubbornly refused to let the disease extinguish the flame of his passion, never allowing it to derail him from the picking adventures he so deeply cherished. But health battles were not the sole burden weighing heavily on Frank's shoulders. Fame, that fickle mistress, inevitably changes things. And for Frank, the transformation wasn't always for the better. When American Pickers exploded in popularity, catapulting him and Mike into the realm of reality TV stardom, life became infinitely more complicated, a tightrope walk between public persona and private struggles. Suddenly, Frank wasn't just a regular guy hunting for antiques in forgotten barns. He was a recognizable face, an instantly identifiable reality TV personality. Everywhere he went, he was recognized, greeted with expectations to embody the same fun-loving, quick-witted persona viewers adored on screen. What the public didn't perceive, however, was the immense pressure that came with that persona, the constant demand to be on, to perform for an unseen audience, even when the cameras weren't rolling. Frank openly admitted that the relentless spotlight, the constant scrutiny, fueled his anxiety. And over time, the cumulative pressure began to take a heavy toll, subtly chipping away at his once unyielding spirit. Then, in 2020, the carefully constructed facade began to crumble. Frank's health took a precipitous dive, his Crohn's symptoms intensifying, culminating in a back injury so severe that it necessitated major surgery. This wasn't a minor procedure, a quick fix. It was a grueling operation involving 185 stitches, the insertion of 2 metal rods into his spine, and a protracted, arduous recovery process that stretched out over months. Adding to the mounting challenges, Frank was also grappling with deeply personal demons, including a private battle with addiction, a struggle further exacerbated by the physical and emotional toll of his health crisis. Initially, his absence from American Pickers was framed as a temporary hiatus, a necessary break to heal, to recuperate, and to eventually return, stronger and healthier than before. But as American Pickers marched forward into its 21st season, the cameras rolling, the episodes airing, and Frank remained conspicuously absent, fans began to voice their growing unease, their questions echoing across social media and online forums. Then, in July 2021, Mike Wolfe delivered the news that shattered the illusion of a temporary absence, making it starkly, irrevocably official. Frank was not coming back to American Pickers. Mike released a public statement, seemingly heartfelt, expressing that he would miss Frank and wishing him the best in his recovery and future endeavors. But surprisingly, Frank didn't reciprocate the sentiment, his response laced with bitterness and disillusionment. In a subsequent interview, he dismissed Mike's words as hollow, a performative gesture devoid of genuine emotion. He then dropped a bombshell that stunned loyal fans to their core. Throughout his agonizing recovery, his surgery, his months of physical therapy and personal struggles, Mike, his longtime friend and business partner, had never once called to check on him. Not a single word of concern, not a fleeting moment of empathy. Decades of working side by side, years of shared adventures, countless on-screen laughs, and not a single phone call. Frank's revelation painted a starkly different picture of their relationship, shattering the carefully curated image of unwavering camaraderie and brotherly bond. On screen, their chemistry was undeniable, their banter effortless, their friendship seemingly unbreakable. But off-screen, behind the scenes, things were far more complex, far more strained. Frank openly confessed that their relationship had never been as close, as genuinely brotherly, as people had been led to believe. He voiced a long-held suspicion, a deep-seated belief that Mike had been subtly, strategically, seeking an opportunity to push him out of the show for years. And with Frank sidelined by his health crisis, incapacitated and vulnerable, that opportunity had finally presented itself. As expected, Frank's explosive accusations ignited a firestorm across the internet, unleashing a torrent of fan debates and impassioned opinions. Some vehemently blamed Mike, accusing him of turning his back on a longtime friend in need, of prioritizing business over brotherhood. Others, more pragmatic, pointed to Frank's well-documented personal struggles, his health battles and addiction issues, suggesting that these, rather than any deliberate betrayal by Mike, were the true reasons behind his departure. Meanwhile, Mike, caught in the crossfire of public scrutiny and fan outrage, responded by reiterating that everyone involved with American Pickers genuinely cared about Frank's well-being, but subtly hinted that getting him back on track had become an increasingly insurmountable challenge, a delicate dance around Frank's personal demons without directly addressing the sensitive topic of addiction. The truth, as is so often the case in matters of the heart and human relationships, was far more nuanced, far more layered than any single narrative could capture. A close friend, privy to the inner workings of their complex dynamic, later revealed that years of relentless work, the grueling demands of their shared profession, the long, exhausting days on the road, the constant pressure of filming, and the inherent stress of maintaining a hit television show had gradually worn them down, fraying the edges of their once solid friendship. Add to that potent mix Frank's increasingly debilitating health battles, his private struggles with addiction, and the inevitable strains of fame, and the cracks in their relationship, once hairline fractures, had widened into gaping chasms, becoming impossible to ignore, impossible to bridge. The friend poignantly described it as a situation where both men, despite the deep affection and shared history that still lingered beneath the surface, simply needed space. A desperate yearning for respite from the relentless daily grind that had consumed them for over a decade, threatening to swallow them whole. So, when you truly consider the totality of the circumstances, the intricate tapestry of their shared history, their individual struggles, and the corrosive effects of fame, the falling out between Frank and Mike wasn't about one dramatic moment of betrayal, one singular act of callousness, or a sudden explosive fallout. It was a slow, insidious erosion, a gradual drifting apart of two longtime colleagues who, after years of working shoulder to shoulder, chasing the same dream, had simply grown apart, their paths diverging under the immense weight of fame, unrelenting stress, and deeply personal battles. For heartbroken fans, clinging to the idealized image of their on-screen camaraderie, it was a bitter, difficult pill to swallow. American Pickers, a show that had always felt like a celebration of friendship and shared passion, suddenly became a stark reminder that even the strongest bonds can fray. Even the most enduring partnerships can unravel when confronted with the harsh realities of life. Even after stepping away from the glare of television cameras, the relentless demands of filming schedules, and the constant pressure of maintaining his public persona, Frank remained inextricably linked to the world of antiques, a world he understood with an intimacy few others possessed. He keenly observed the evolving landscape of collecting, recognizing the seismic shift in buying habits, the growing dominance of online marketplaces, the digital migration of collectors worldwide. Instead of clinging to outdated business models, Frank, ever the pragmatist, adapted, launching his own digital storefront, embracing the power of e-commerce, and leveraging social media to forge direct connections with collectors across the globe. For Frank, it wasn't about desperately clinging to relevance in a rapidly changing world. It was about something far more profound, keeping the vibrant spirit of picking alive, ensuring that the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery, and the preservation of history continued to thrive, even in a new, increasingly digital era. But if there was one passion that rivaled Frank's deep love for antiques, it was his lifelong infatuation with motorcycles. His love affair with bikes began in his youth, one of his earliest and most cherished big-ticket purchases being a vintage 1964 Harley-Davidson, a rebellious acquisition that likely raised his parents' eyebrows but irrevocably cemented his enduring love for classic rides. Over the decades, he meticulously curated an impressive collection, transforming an entire barn into a shrine to two-wheeled history, row upon row of rare and classic motorcycles gleaming under the barn lights. And Frank wasn't just a passive collector, he was a scholar of motorcycle history, a passionate advocate for the artistry and engineering of vintage bikes, eager to share his vast knowledge with anyone who would listen. In 2013, he poured his expertise into ink, authoring How to Pick Vintage Motorcycles, a comprehensive guide that broke down every facet of motorcycle collecting, from spotting hidden gems in dusty garages to the meticulous art of maintaining these complex machines. He even dedicated a section to vintage toy motorcycles, whimsical miniatures that mirrored their full-sized counterparts, proving that his love for collecting wasn't confined to grand, imposing machines. It was a deep appreciation for the details, the craftsmanship, and the untold stories embedded within every piece, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. Beyond his own personal pursuits, Frank consistently made it a point to give back to the antiques community that had embraced him, supported him, and shared his passion. He actively collaborated with fellow experts, teaming up with other seasoned pickers and antique authorities to host bustling antique fairs, meticulously curated exhibitions, and engaging live events, creating vibrant spaces where collectors, dealers, and enthusiasts could connect, share knowledge, and celebrate their shared passion for preserving the past. He further extended his outreach by co-authoring American Picker's Guide to Picking, a practical handbook offering fans an insider's glimpse into the often mysterious world of professional picking, demystifying the art of treasure hunting, and inspiring a new generation of collectors. What truly set Frank apart, what elevated him beyond a mere collector of objects, wasn't just his uncanny eye for spotting a great find amidst the clutter. It was the unique way he breathed life into history, his almost magical ability to make the past feel tangible, relevant, and undeniably exciting. Whether he was waxing poetic about the faded glory of a rusty gas pump, its weathered surface whispering tales of bygone road trips and cross-country adventures, or sharing an animated anecdote about a forgotten toy from the 1950s, its chipped paint and worn edges hinting at the laughter of children long grown, Frank possessed a rare gift for connecting people to the past, for making history accessible, engaging, and deeply personal. To Frank, picking wasn't just about the transactional act of buying and selling. It was a sacred mission, a heartfelt endeavor to keep stories alive, to honor the forgotten narratives embedded within every treasure he unearthed, one relic at a time. And while many, fueled by media narratives and public pronouncements, assumed that his bitter feud with Mike Wolfe would persist for years to come, an unyielding chapter of animosity and unresolved conflict, fate had a different, far more poignant resolution in store. In July 2022, Frank's life took a devastating, unforeseen turn. He suffered a major stroke at his home in Davenport, Iowa, a sudden catastrophic event that irrevocably altered the trajectory of his remaining years. By the time emergency responders arrived, summoned by a frantic 911 call, Frank was unresponsive, his condition alarmingly critical. He was rushed to the nearest hospital, where a team of dedicated doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize him, to wrestle him back from the brink. But the stroke had inflicted severe damage, leaving him physically weakened, his future hanging precariously in the balance. Fans, who had followed his journey with unwavering loyalty for years, held their breath, anxiously scouring social media for updates, clinging to fragile threads of hope, praying that the resilient picker would somehow, against all odds, pull through. After nearly a month of intensive care in the hospital, battling for every breath, every flicker of consciousness, Frank was finally deemed stable enough to be transferred to a rehab facility, marking the beginning of what everyone knew would be a long, arduous, and emotionally exhausting road to recovery. A stroke, that brutal thief of life, doesn't just knock you down. It can systematically strip away everything you once took for granted, leaving behind a landscape of altered realities and daunting challenges. For Frank, a man who had spent years traversing the country with unbridled energy, striking deals with a handshake, and living life entirely on his own terms, the sudden dependency, the stark realization of needing help with even the most basic tasks, was a cruel, humbling reality, a stark contrast to the independent spirit that had always defined him. He could no longer care for himself, his body, once a vessel of boundless energy and tireless exploration, now fragile, unresponsive, betraying him at every turn. The courts, recognizing the severity of his condition and his diminished capacity, had to step in, appointing a legal guardian to oversee his daily needs, to make decisions in his best interest, while a bank was entrusted with managing his finances, ensuring his long-term care. The fiercely guarded independence he had always valued, the self-reliance that had been a cornerstone of his identity, was suddenly, heartbreakingly, out of reach, replaced by the stark reality of dependence and vulnerability. And then there was the staggering financial burden of his medical care. Reports surfaced that his monthly medical expenses had ballooned to a staggering $29,000 a month, a shocking number that laid bare the immense financial toll of his health crisis, making it painfully clear just how much he had irrevocably lost, not just physically, but economically as well. But amidst the darkness and despair, amidst the grim prognosis and mounting medical bills, a flicker of unexpected light emerged, a testament to the enduring power of human connection. If there was one unforeseen outcome of Frank's devastating stroke, it was the profound shift it triggered in his long-fractured relationship with Mike Wolfe. In May 2023, a moment of grace, a gesture of reconciliation that no one, least of all those closest to them, had dared to hope for. Frank, in a moment of vulnerability and perhaps a dawning awareness of his own mortality, reached out, asking to see Mike. After years of icy distance, simmering bitterness, and countless unspoken words hanging heavy in the air between them, the two finally sat down, face to face, in a room thick with unspoken history and the weight of years gone by. A friend, a silent witness to this poignant reunion, later shared that the encounter was deeply emotional, a cathartic release of years of pent-up grief and regret. Both men, once jovial partners, now weathered by time and circumstance, were reduced to tears, the raw emotion of their shared past overwhelming them. In that charged, emotionally raw space, Mike spoke words to Frank that resonated deep within his soul, words that transcended the bitterness and business disputes that had defined their recent years. No one, Mike confessed, his voice thick with emotion, could ever replace him. In that fragile moment of reconnection, the years of resentment, the business squabbles, the ego-driven conflicts, all faded into insignificance. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, it wasn't about the show, the bottom line, the relentless pursuit of profit, or the petty squabbles over who was right or wrong. It was about something far more fundamental, far more enduring, the genuine friendship they had painstakingly built long before American Pickers was even a glimmer of an idea. A bond forged in the shared joy of discovery, the camaraderie of two guys chasing a dream down dusty back roads, united by an unyielding love for the thrill of the hunt. After all that had transpired, after the years of silence and unspoken animosity, that fundamental bond, that deep-seated friendship, was still there, stubbornly refusing to be completely extinguished, merely buried beneath layers of resentment, but never truly irrevocably broken. By September 2024, Frank's fragile health had reached a critical breaking point. After years of valiantly battling chronic illness, his body, weary and worn, simply lacked the strength to continue the arduous fight. Those closest to him, his mother, his friends, his inner circle knew, with a heavy heart and a sense of quiet resignation, that the end was near. When the call came, the somber news spreading through hushed whispers, Mike didn't hesitate for a moment. He rushed to Frank's side, joining Frank's mother and a close family friend in a room heavy with unspoken grief, thick with the weight of shared memories and unfulfilled reconciliations. The room was quiet, punctuated only by shallow breaths and the muffled sounds of unspoken sorrow. For years, the relationship between Frank and Mike had been a complex, tangled web of professional partnership and personal discord. But in that final, poignant moment, none of the past conflicts, none of the business disputes, none of the petty grievances mattered. All that remained, stripped bare of the complexities and contradictions of their public lives, was the enduring strength of their friendship. The real, unvarnished bond that had predated the cameras and the fame. A connection forged on countless backroads and fueled by a shared love for the hunt. Mike later shared, his voice choked with emotion, that he was holding Frank's hand when he took his final breath, whispering words of love, forgiveness, and acceptance into his ear, assuring him that everything, finally, was okay. And then, just like that, Frank, the bearded picker, the heart of American pickers, the man who had unearthed countless stories from the dustbins of history, became history himself. His earthly journey complete. Before Frank Fritz breathed his last, as the final vestiges of life ebbed away, his last words hung in the air, a cryptic, unsettling, yet profoundly meaningful message, echoing the very essence of his life's passion. The past is never really gone. It's always with us, hiding in the shadows. Coming from a man who had dedicated his life to unearthing forgotten treasures, to rescuing relics from the shadows of history, those words felt almost poetic, a fitting epitaph to a life spent chasing ghosts and unearthing the stories they left behind. His loved ones, grappling with the raw grief of his passing, still ponder those final words, wondering what thoughts, what memories, what untold stories flickered through Frank's mind in those fleeting final moments. According to his official death certificate, Frank's passing was ultimately attributed to complications arising from his debilitating stroke. Compounding his health struggles, he had also been battling aortic stenosis, a heart condition that rendered even the simplest tasks, walking, breathing, merely standing, utterly exhausting, a constant drain on his dwindling reserves of energy. His body, a vessel that had carried him across countless miles, through countless adventures, had endured so much, fighting valiantly every step of the way. But in the end, it simply could no longer hold on, succumbing to the accumulated weight of illness and time. But while Frank Fritz's passing marked the definitive end of an era, the closing of a chapter in the American picking saga, what was discovered in his estate in the aftermath of his death was so profoundly shocking, so utterly unexpected, that even those closest to him, those who thought they knew him best, could hardly believe it. Frank's deep, abiding love for motorcycles was no secret. It was a well-known facet of his persona, a passion he often showcased both on and off screen. But what few truly grasped, what remained hidden behind the public image of the jovial picker, was the sheer scale, the breathtaking extent, of his private motorcycle collection. After his passing, when the heavy doors to his private garage were finally opened, revealing the meticulously guarded sanctuary within, what lay inside shocked even those who had known him for decades. Row upon row, stretching into the dimly lit recesses of the barn-like space, stood a breathtaking, almost unbelievable assembly of vintage motorcycles. Some bikes were meticulously restored, gleaming under the soft garage lights, their chrome polished to a mirror sheen, testaments to hours of painstaking labor and unwavering dedication. Others, equally rare, equally valuable, sat shrouded in dust covers, patiently awaiting their turn for restoration, silent mid-project testimonies to a passion that burned eternally, even when time and health began to wane. There were rare Indian motorcycles, iconic machines that whispered tales of early American engineering and daredevil riders, classic Harley-Davidsons, each bearing the unmistakable rumble of freedom and rebellion, lined up like silent sentinels of the open road. Custom choppers, gleaming with chrome and boasting outlandish designs, stood as bold statements of individual expression and mechanical artistry. Each bike, each meticulously curated component, had been painstakingly hunted down, often across state lines, over years of relentless searching and shrewd negotiation. Frank had poured countless hours into restoring them, coaxing life back into engines long dormant, polishing faded chrome until it gleamed anew, his hands imbued with the knowledge and skill of a true craftsman. And he had held on to them, fiercely, possessively, not as mere possessions, but as treasured relics, each motorcycle a tangible link to a bygone era, a physical embodiment of his deep-seated connection to history. The very thought of this extraordinary collection, the culmination of a lifetime's passion, being dispersed, sold off to the highest bidder, felt almost unthinkable to those who truly understood how deeply these machines resonated with Frank, how intertwined they were with the very fabric of his being. Yet, according to sources close to the estate, an auction is already in the works. A massive undertaking that will see every bike, every vintage sign adorning the garage walls, and every carefully preserved piece of picking history go under the hammer, scattered to the four winds, dispersed amongst collectors and enthusiasts worldwide. But here's the final, most unexpected twist, the revelation that truly left everyone speechless. The detail that transformed a story of loss and legacy into a poignant tale of generosity and enduring spirit. The substantial proceeds from the upcoming auction, the considerable sum generated from the sale of Frank's beloved motorcycle collection, and lifetime of accumulated treasures won't be channeled into a private estate, bolstering a business fund, or lining the pockets of distant relatives. Instead, in a final, selfless act that perfectly encapsulated Frank's generous spirit, the entirety of the auction proceeds will be directly donated to charity, transforming Frank's lifelong passion, his decades-long pursuit of collecting, into one last, profoundly impactful act of generosity, a final, enduring gift to the world he so deeply loved and cherished. This, then, is the final, unexpected chapter in the Frank Fritz saga. A story not just of loss and legacy, but of passion, resilience, and a surprising act of generosity that transcended fame and fortune. The past, as Frank so poignantly reminded us in his final words, is never truly gone. It remains with us, woven into the fabric of our present, shaping our future in ways we may never fully comprehend. And in the echoes of Frank Fritz's life, in the rumble of his vintage motorcycles, and in the quiet generosity of his final act, that enduring truth resonates, louder and clearer than ever before.